Welcome to Hello Health, a show where we have conversations about healthy living. I am your host, Keryn, and I am a certified functional medicine health coach. I'm so glad you joined us this week. We have a really cool show lined up. I got to sit down with a friend of mine, Minyan Zhu, and we talked about different types of healthy brews to support your immune system, to support your health. Things like teas and herbal things and even coffee came up in our conversation. So this guy is a wealth of knowledge. You're going to learn so much. He's very cool. So that was an exciting interview to have. And of course, Gwen will be back with some tips on sweeteners, some healthy sweeteners that you can put in those drinks. First, I would like to continue our conversation about character strengths. So for the past couple weeks, we've been talking about the VIA character strengths. And this is the website that you can go to. You fill out a questionnaire. It's about 10 to 15 minutes long. And it will tell you what your top strengths are. Well, I'll tell you all of the strengths and where they are for you, what are stronger and what are not as strong. And it's very interesting to learn about that because it helps you to strengthen your personal relationships. It helps you to strengthen your work relationships, helps you to be aware of how you communicate and work with other people, and maybe ways that you can tweak things in your life to have a happier and more fulfilling life. So it's a powerful thing. It's very interesting. So I urge you to take a look at that. It's a free survey. Just go online and answer some questions. And there's a lot of resources on there as well. One of these is this book called Character Strengths Matter, which is an excellent book we used in our coaching. And it has some great tips in here. So we're going in alphabetical order, if you haven't figured that out already. So this week, we're going to be talking about fairness and forgiveness. So the first one, fairness. With fairness, if this is something that's strong for you, you're the type of person who really likes to make sure that everyone's treated equally, maybe a freedom fighter or, just someone who is looking out for the underdog and taking care of other people, which is wonderful. If it's lower on your list and it's something that you'd like to work on to build up a little bit more, there are a couple tips. They give a bunch in this book, but here are a couple excerpts. The next time you make a mistake, self-monitor to see whether or not you admit it. That's important. Try to be more forthright about your mistakes in the future. I think that's an excellent point. I think a lot of times when we make mistakes, we come to the realization and think, oh, wow, yeah, I was wrong. But how often do we communicate that to the other people involved? And it makes a big difference. It takes a lot of courage to say to someone, I was really wrong about that. And I understand now, and I can totally see the light. I can understand the situation better now, however you want to approach it. But being able to be strong enough to communicate that and admit that's a big thing. So see if you can acknowledge that, bring some awareness to that in your life, and see if it's something you need to work on. Another tip is to self-monitor to see whether your judgments are affected by your personal likes and dislikes or are based on principles of justice and fairness. Try to minimize the influence of your personal preferences when making future judgments. Huge! That's so huge. I feel like a lot of times we can be judgmental. I think it really does take a lot of effort to step back from a situation and try to weigh out like all of the circumstances, just take everything into consideration and think about what is the right way? What do I really think? And not be colored by your judgment, maybe your past experience. Sometimes that can be helpful when making crucial decisions, using past experiences, but it is important to take a step back and make sure you're looking at things fairly. So those are some great tips about fairness. The next one is forgiveness. Forgiveness, that's huge. Being able to forgive yourself, especially. I think we tend to be our own worst enemies in so many ways. So they don't mention that in the book specifically, but being able to forgive yourself, that is a really good strength to have. Just being very gentle and graceful with yourself and knowing that we're only human. We make mistakes. And if we can learn from them and acknowledge them, it's kind of what we're here to do, right? So that's my addition to some tips on building forgiveness. So here are a couple here from the book. Remember the times when you offended someone and were forgiven. Then extend this gift to others. Don't demand a formal apology. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy, right? That's a famous question, quote type thing. Being able to forgive someone with grace, to let it go, to not hold on to a grudge. That's a beautiful thing. Meet a person who offended you in the past, especially if he or she is a family member. Tell them that you have forgiven them, or just be kind in your interaction with them. Sometimes it doesn't even matter if you say to their face, I forgive you for that thing you did. Sometimes that can be really important, especially if if we go back into fairness and you know that maybe you were wrong and you want to be able to say to someone that you forgive them, then that's appropriate. But it's not always appropriate to say face to face, especially if you feel like you were wronged in a certain way. Maybe it was on both sides. But if in your heart you can forgive them and you can treat them with kindness and generosity, then that's a big thing too. Even people we may never see again, people that have hurt us in the past, taking that time to sit quietly and know in your heart that you forgive that person, and you just kind of send that energy out, and just knowing like, I'm lifting this burden from me. I'm not going to hold on to this anymore. I forgive you. I'm moving on with my life. That can be a really important thing to do too for your personal health. So those are just a few thoughts on character strengths for this week. And next week we'll continue alphabetically down the line. And when we get to my top strengths, I will let you know. But I am really interested in hearing what yours are, if you're willing to share. So please comment in the comment section, whether you're here on YouTube or on Facebook. I'd love to hear if you want to share any experiences you have, especially this week, if fairness or forgiveness, what you think about those two strengths. So let's continue on and bring on a very dear friend of mine, Minyan Zhu. I am so excited to introduce this week's guest. He is a good friend of mine. His name is Minyan Zhu, and he is just an exceptional human being. Many times when I describe him to people, I say he's like a living Buddha because his presence is so calm and just amazing, otherworldly. I wish there were enough words to describe him, but he's definitely an artist in everything he does. He's an amazing photographer. He just has that really special eye for things, for observing life and nature. But he just has a wonderful presence, and he has studied functional medicine. He's a functional medicine diagnostic practitioner, but he's just a life explorer, an amazing person. And I brought him on today to talk to us. We're going to geek out a little bit. I'm going to apologize for that. When we first became friends, we kind of geeked out over this book called The Book of Tea. And we're both tea lovers, tea enthusiasts. And that's led on to talking about other types of brews and things like that. So let's bring him on so we can geek out and learn some awesome things from Minyan. Hello.
Hey,
Welcome to the
Keryn.
show.
Hey, thank you for that. Thank you for that introduction. I'm kind of blushing a little bit.
Aw. You're one of my
Yeah, and just
favorite people.
to add to that, I think it's been really great to see you grow and explore the things that you're really interested in. It's very clear to me that like you have a passion for helping people, and um, even like starting your journey as a massage therapist, you were always like asking deeper questions and like the whys, and like you always kind of wanted to know like why and more. So yeah, I really super admire that, and
Thank you.
happy to be here. You can
Yeah, so glad you're here. Yes. So let's
help.
do it. So what's brewing? It's so important to, especially this time of year, don't you agree, to really support your immune system? And we can do that easily with the things we consume, and beverages are a huge part of that.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, definitely, because they're easily digestible. They don't have to um, engage like the liver gallbladder action. There's no digestive juices or blood that's like pulled away from the rest of your nervous system. It's just really beautiful, free flowing energy that you can extract from a cup of liquid, because
Yes.
water it's the universal solvent. So
Yes.
you put medicine in there, and you'll have this like just really beautiful vehicle to deliver this medicine into your cells.
I love that.
Mhm.
Before we started recording, we were kind of chatting about matcha. And I love to start my day with a nice warm bowl of matcha and whisk it up. That we were talking about, like the whole ceremony of that in the morning. Matcha has really become popularized in, with Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks and all these other kind of fast food type of places. But what are your opinions on that, Minyan?
Oh, I think it's great. I think it's great that there's just like an explosion of interest when it comes to teas, because I feel like in the past, coffees have predominantly, taken the reins over people's beverage of choice, or quote unquote drug of choice in the morning. And I think that's amazing that the vast larger amount of population is being introduced to tea, and they're viewing it as like a healthier alternative to coffee, and that's a great starting point. But just like anything else, there's like nuances, and the was that the devil's in the details type of deal.
Mm-hmm.
The quality of matcha tea varies greatly. I mean, you got organic matcha, you got conventional matcha, you got culinary matcha, you got supplemental grade matcha, you got ceremony matcha, and then you got supreme ceremony matcha. So it gets kind of overwhelming, but basically it's kind of like how green is the tea? Like, do you get to see it? And if is it covered up with like a lot of sugar and a lot of like unhealthy additives like conventional milks and conventional whatever else that the matcha is adulterated with? So it's a great start, but I think the story goes a much deeper for matcha.
Yeah, definitely. How do
Mhm.
you get your matcha? What brand do you have, a brand that you really love?
Yeah, I really love this brand called Eco Heed, and it's a
Mm.
superior culinary grade. So it's not quite like quite the ceremonial grade where you can literally like feel like you're high off of a cup of matcha, because the chlorophyll
Mm.
content is so high.
Ugh.
There's just a really clean, pure mixture of like caffeine and also what is it, L-theanine, which kind of counterbalances the caffeine. It's the yin to the yang. So there's like really this beautiful balance of chemical reactions that are happening when you consume like a high quality cup of matcha, and it's like super, what do you call it, like hyperoxygenating. And then the matcha tea, you're consuming the entire tea leaf, so you're getting fiber, and it stays in your large intestines as a prebiotic, which ultimately feeds the probiotics a little bit further up in the chain. So I think matcha's not really a wonder drug, but it's probably the closest thing that I've encountered. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a wonderful way to start your day, and I had started it to try to substitute drinking coffee in the morning. And what people might not know is it is a green tea, but it has more caffeine in it than, let's say, a jasmine tea. So it does give you a little bit more of a kick. But it's like what I love about it is it's like a slow release. With coffee, you get that like zoom, and then you're like, whoa.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And part of that slow release comes from the fact that matcha has fiber in it, and fiber kind of like it's like a slow drip of caffeine, you know. So when you're
Yeah.
consuming that matcha, it's not going all to your system like, you know, unadulterated, and just you get this rush of water, and then boom, you got caffeine in your veins. But the matcha has a small amount of fiber that kind of slows down the absorption process, and it just makes it a lot more pleasant because of the L-theanine that balances out the just the ballast of caffeine. You know, and green tea
Yeah.
actually has a lot of ECGCs and antioxidants and polyphenols. And these are just geek words that don't mean anything, but the Buddhist monks they use
Yes.
green tea and matcha as a meditation tool because it
Right.
simultaneously help them to get energy and also simultaneously help them to like tap into, you know, a deeper brainwave, like a theta
Mm.
brainwave, because the ECGCs and also the L-theanine like really starts to stimulate that part of the brain. So for me, a good cup of matcha is just like a really incredible cup of calm.
Yes. I love that. Oh, so awesome. All right. Talking about our favorite things to drink, warm lemon water for sure.
Hmm.
So, Min, you're originally from China and you go back there. I don't know if you've been back recently since the pandemic, but I know that they part of the culture is drinking warm water. Is
Hmm.
not drinking cold beverages, but drinking warm water, and how that is better for your digestion and for your chi.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I think that the that culture really really places a lot of importance on just keeping the body like warm,
Hmm.
and even it extends to, you know, like wearing warm footwear all the time, warm socks, not going barefoot, not being cold ever. You know, it's kind of a extreme way of looking at things, but you know, at the baseline, if you're really just trying to like, you know, reset, then I always kind of subscribe to that warmth again, because right now I have like, I don't know, yesterday, last night I just overworked myself with just a lot of just like taking people on tours of Sedona, and it's gorgeous here. You know, a lot of yoga tours,
Mm.
teaching Tai Chi on the rocks and Qigong on the rocks, and
Oh,
teaching cooking
yes.
classes.
Yeah.
And I think I just kind of like ran myself into the ground a little bit, even though like all those things sound very very calming, but there can be a little bit too much of a good thing as well. So
Mhm.
what am I? Oh yeah, the warmth, right? So now I'm just like defaulting my program. My brain's like, oh, I'm drinking warm lemon water in this cup, which I was trying to show the camera earlier, and I watered my keyboard, and I got soup on the stove right now. So yeah, like when everything just kind of like falls apart for me, and I need support, I definitely go towards drinking warm things, because it's you know, the body is always like kind of seeking homeostasis, and the body is at you know, 98.6 degrees, and our internal temperature maybe vary a little bit. So if I can kind of like reduce the parasitic, you know, conversion rate of the energy in my body, you know, like if I can just drink things that are body temperature, eat things that are body temperature. Like my digestive system has to do way less work to digest it. And one of the things that I'm seeing a lot is that people are drinking like ice water, right?
Mm.
It might seem like cold and refreshing on like a hot summer day, and there's a time and a place for things like that too. But over time, it's like what happens when you jump into, you know, a pool of freezing water, right? Like your body's like, oh God, I'm dying. I gotta get
Yeah.
out. I gotta get out.
Yes.
And so like the our entire organ of the skin is there to kind of like protect the internals from drastically changing temperature too much. So as soon as we invite that into our internals, like we're bypassing the outer nervous system and the skin and the sensory um, nerves on our subcutaneous layer, like, you know, we kind of bypass that intelligence, and it's almost like a Trojan horse, you know, like
Hmm.
in the immediate, it seems like, oh yeah, cold water on a hot summer day, great, but it really does start to affect digestion over the course of like a few days, a few weeks, a few months, or
Mm.
even a few years, you know, because once it becomes a habit, it's like why would I want to drink warm water? Like that's gross. Just drink cold water.
Yeah,
So
and I had heard about with the digestive system too. It's like thinking of taking like a dirty plate and you're trying to rinse it with cold water. It,
Hmm.
the stuff, it doesn't come off. Like the food's still stuck on the plate. It doesn't rinse it really well. But if you use warm water, it just cleans it right off. And the same thing's happening inside of our bodies as well. So giving it warm water, it's like whoosh. Our
Yeah, and
body
also
doesn't need to warm it up. It's
psychologically too, if you're sitting across from somebody and you're drinking cold water, that person will come off as cold, and if you're drinking some like a
yeah,
warm beverage, the likability of that person across the table from you increases exponentially.
yeah,
So I don't know if you've ever
interesting.
noticed that, but that's a psychological
No,
thing. So if you're going on a date and you want to impress somebody, just make sure you just order them something nice and warm and cozy.
yeah.
Get the fuzzies going.
Good advice. See all this awesome advice we're getting from men. We never thought we'd get dating advice from men at the same time as learning about tea. So coffee. Let's just quickly talk about coffee because we're I'm not a huge coffee drinker, but I'm not down on coffee. There are some days where I'll drink coffee and I'll feel like it's giving me life. Like,
Hmm.
oh, I feel alive again.
Hmm.
There are other days where I drink it and I feel like sludge.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't
Yeah.
give me anything.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on coffee?
Oh man, I love coffee. I love coffee. I think it's just like I just love the smell, the aromas, the um just the process, the ritual of making coffee. I just recently got like an espresso maker and with
Mm.
a milk steamer, and I've just been steaming all day and every day. That's probably why I got sick because I'm just like on this coffee kick. Um, so I think it definitely has a time and a place, and I think
Mhm.
coffee it is a very powerful way of waking up the brain because it produces dopamine. It releases dopamine in the brain, and then that releases motivation. So coffee is primarily a drug of the industrial age, according to Michael Pollan. And in his recent book, he had an experiment where he didn't drink coffee for 3 months, and then one day he was just like, "Let's see what this does. Let's see what this coffee does." And he legit started hallucinating, like he was on like an ayahuasca trip or a mushroom trip, and that's when he
Whoa.
realized that coffee was like a very potent, powerful drug that's not, quote
Yeah.
unquote respected. But I think it's that hedonistic treadmill. Like if we're used to something,
Yeah.
our bodies kind of like start to build a tolerance, and then we have to kind of like drink more, and the pleasure is kind of taken away from it because we're so used to it. So it's kind of like we got to take a break from it once in a while.
Mm.
But even more so, coffee. I look at coffee as kind of like a credit card for energy.
Mhm.
Whereas, let's say healthy lifestyle choices, and I'm not saying that coffee can't be a part of the healthy lifestyle choice, but if everything was correct, and let's say we got our sleep, we got our nutrition and movement in order, that we just have this budding vitality, like our body's just like, yes, I can just keep going, and it's just like self-perpetuating. That energy is like self-perpetuating, right? But coffee, it's like some days I'm just like, I can't. I think I need sleep. I need some coffee. So I'll just like drink a coffee, and I'm like, whoa, okay, I'm awake. But then I was having like a mid-afternoon crash, and that
Yeah.
to me is like, I just literally just borrowed energy on a credit card, and it was accruing interest. And then over the course of like the next few hours, the next few days, I my sleep kind of starts to get impacted because there's a half-life to caffeine.
Mhm.
Meaning
Yeah.
in 6 hours, the coffee is going to like come. It's almost like a flashback of caffeine, like you get half that dose. So it's almost like a free caffeine trip afterwards, after about 6 hours. Um, and then we were talking about the quality of coffee, like how,
Yeah.
quote, it's kind of a hot word, mycotoxins. And this is,
Mhm.
it's controversial because this guy, Dave Asprey, the Bulletproof
Mm.
executive,
Yeah.
he kind of presented the idea that all coffees have certain trace amounts of like mold that's
Mhm.
not destroyed by the roasting process. So that mold kind of like starts to get into our systems, and on long-term trajectory, mold kind of shows up the same as Lyme disease. It's kind of like it really affects your blood-brain barrier and leads to some very scary things. So I
Mhm.
would encourage coffee drinkers to just seek out like really responsibly harvested coffees, and I feel like the moldy coffees are more like more or not they're like dry process. So the beans are picked and then they're left in this very humid tropical environment to kind of like decompose.
Hmm.
And during that process, you know, it's really the beans are really moist for a long time and it starts to pick up that mold. So there's
Yeah.
a process called wet process coffee where they literally like move the coffee through like a conveyor belt or a system and they start picking off the coffee shells, the fruits of the coffee, the outer
Mhm.
fruit shell, and the beans are then dried and expedited, and then they're roasted. So that's
Oh,
kind of
wow.
inspiration, but um,
Yeah.
it's divided, it's mixed, it's divided, polarized opinions on like whether coffee does have mold or does not. So I don't really have a conclusive answer, but I would just say don't worry about it and just find the best cup of coffee that you can find and try to support local organics and try to find coffee shops with people with like mustache handles and like tattoos and piercings because they're really serious about their coffee. Like
Oh,
that's
yeah.
that's
Totally.
the way to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, moderation. I think coffee is just like
Right.
about moderation.
Yeah. I had read a study too that talked about how it can lengthen the telomeres too. Coffee, even as opposed to black tea. That, but it's got to be, I think when you decide you're going to spend a little bit of money on really good organic responsibly sourced coffee, you're doing your taste buds a favor too, because the coffee tastes exponentially better than hitting up Dunkin' Donuts or Honeydew. It's a big difference in the experience of drinking the coffee as well.
Yeah, and coffee actually has liver cleansing properties as well.
Mm,
So it really like in the right quantity and the dosage. It's all about just like measured, studied dosage and most especially just like feeling into your body and just seeing how it feels in your
yeah.
body. So it could be sometimes it could be like a $6 bag of coffee, organic coffee from Stop and Shop. And the body might sit better with that than like a $30 bag of specialty coffee from like a hipster place. So I
Mhm.
would implore you guys to kind of like just feel into the body, like how these things like really like start to affect the body or not. Like how does it feel
Mhm.
in an hour, in 2 hours, 3 hours? I know it's kind of a lot of work, but I think this the journey of health of becoming whole is all about like awareness,
Oh,
awareness
yeah.
journals and energetic
Yeah.
patterns and just habits and just making just tiny little choices that we can kind of move along every single day and
Mhm.
or just like what will my future self appreciate my present self doing, like just these little tiny small things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
working with clients, they come to me and they're just like, I have X, Y, and Z wrong with me, like can we get this fixed now? And I'm like, no, no, not possible.
It takes some work, and you're right, awareness is huge. You can take that lesson into anything in your life, and especially understanding how your body responds to what you're putting into it, for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah.
Mushroom teas are something that they're getting more and more popular now. I was drinking a brand called Rasa
Okay.
earlier this year that I really loved. They have different types of, different types of mushrooms for different things. I was doing one, I think it was called Bold, and it gave you like a little bit more energy in the morning or something like that.
Mm.
But I was using that during an elimination diet I was on, so I had to get rid of all caffeine,
Mhm.
and I was really scared about cutting the caffeine from my diet. That was paralyzing for me. That was the only thing I was really, really worried about. But the mushroom teas really, they supported my adrenals, supported my body, and I felt good. But after a week of detoxing from the caffeine, they really made me feel supported. Uh, what do you have to say about mushroom teas? So much.
Whew. I would default to this guy called Paul Stamets. He's kind of like the mushroom tea expert, and he's been a huge source of inspiration and also just a huge progenitor in like the field of mushroom development, understanding evolution, and also just like clearing mushrooms of like their dirty reputations. Because people are like
Yeah.
mushrooms, they're just nasty. But mushrooms are. So from like a philosophical and spiritual perspective, mushrooms are kind of like the bridge between the living and the dying, the
Hmm.
decomposition, because everything it kind of like decomposes like woods, it decomposes buildings. Even right now, it's decomposing like plastic. So there's huge potential applications for therapeutic and also like environmental remediations of mushrooms coming up pretty soon. But as teas go, like they're just a really incredible anti-inflammatory. Like they
Hmm.
start to fortify the digestive system. And that's why, anytime you walk into like a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, they have this giant reishi mushroom. It's called the mushroom of
Yeah.
immortality, reishi mushrooms. And there was a time in my life where like they were just literally finding me left and right. I was just hiking out in the woods, the same trails I've hiked for, 20, 10, 20 years. I'm not that old, but 10, 20 years. And they never popped out to me. And then one year, like the Rishis, they were just like, boom, here you go. Um,
Wow.
make medicine with me, make tea with me. And I really correlate that with like a period of like really profound healing when I was like in that relationship with the reishi mushrooms. And I don't think it was necessarily just the reishi mushrooms, but I think they really invited me to dig deeper into what is possible with the mycelium and what is possible with that mushroom consciousness. And then there's chaga teas, which is actually quite pleasant. Like it's this
Hmm.
birch pour that's like really hard. It almost like looks like space rock. Um,
Yeah.
and you just boil the crap out of it for hours, and it almost tastes like a chocolate milkshake. Um, and
Interesting.
and that's like the widely regarded as the most powerful mushroom in the world on planet Earth. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, and it's interesting if you tincture them, you get different polyphenols, different like disaccharides and saccharides from the alcohol extraction versus the water extraction. So ideally, you want kind of like a double concoction.
Hmm.
And there's some amazing people, amazing medicine collectors out there that are making these incredible tinctures. You can even buy them on like Etsy, you know.
Wow. So we're talking about, I want to put these up here for people to be able to check out. So reishi and chaga mushrooms are what you're talking about right now.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's turkey tail, which Paul Stamets
Hmm.
he used turkey tail to help his mom clear out her breast cancer.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So that was the thing that really got him interested in the power of mushrooms because seeing is believing, and I think just empirically having an outcome like that, just like how can you not be a believer after that?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. That is amazing. Amazing stuff. Might have to come back and do like a whole show on mushrooms for us.
yeah, yeah. I could talk about mushrooms all day, honestly.
Yeah, this is just fascinating stuff. I think people would really love to hear more. Let us know in the comment section. Um, and cacao is something that's kind of been popularized. I mean, this is something that ancient cultures have been brewing for many years for different spiritual ceremonies and other things. But just pure cacao, brewing that or eating it, consuming it, there's so many health benefits as well. Tons of antioxidants, more than blueberries. Um, I mean, it just the list goes on and on. You can Google it if you want all of
Mhm.
the health benefits of cacao. And I found actually I brought it fell on the ground. I was going to get a new bag that I could share better because this one's kind of almost done. But Numi, which is a brand you can pick up at Whole Foods, it's organic. They have put out drinking chocolate. So this is cacao with a little bit of chili, and I've been mixing it in with some coffee in the morning, with a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
whisk and a little bit of cinnamon, and it's amazing. It's so good, and I'm drinking it thinking, this is really good for me. But it can make your drinks a little bit more interesting. You put them in smoothies. But yeah, I've been enjoying that, and I know there are some companies that have been popping up where you can actually just buy little discs and melt them down and just drink the cacao. Do you have
Mhm.
experience with that? Do you have any kind that you really like, or how do you like to take your cacao?
I have rudimentary experience when it comes to cacao, but
Hmm.
I mean, I can tell you I've had some like really profound experiences on just a very limited amount of experience I have had with cacao. In the New Haven community, I had my friend Caprice. She's Guatemalan, and she brought back some just like really, beautiful uh,
Oh
cacao from the motherland, and it was just
my
like
gosh.
hand ground and like made with like coconut milk and some cardamom and cinnamon and a little bit of
Man.
natural honey. And yeah, I mean, I tend to like, I went into the experience thinking like, oh, this is just going to be like hot chocolate or something, and it was just like, my heart was like, what was going on? Like, felt like it was just like opening, cacao is a
Yeah,
with the heart.
it does. Yeah.
Uh, it really helps us to get in tune with the heart chakra, and also
Hmm.
invites like connection with other people, with other human
Hmm.
beings, and invites just kind of like a deeper compassionate look at our own journey, and a deeper compassionate look at like how we treat ourselves and like what our thoughts are in the brain, so it's beyond just like the tastiness of it. I feel like it has on a biochemical reaction, there's a lot of like L-theanine, and I think it does have trace amounts of caffeine as well. So
It
it
does. Yeah.
can be a very potent like coffee substitute, and it's got those like toasted notes, and it's fermented just like coffee is. Most
Hmm.
people don't know that, but cacao beans, like I've had cacao beans like by themselves, and it's just you get a lot of bitterness like when you just bite into cacao bean, like even more so than like 100% cacao. The same with tea leaves,
Mm.
like unfermented tea leaves are
Yeah.
just bitter. Um, and cacao is kind of like the tea of the South, of the South Americans. Um, yeah, and
Yeah.
it
Good
has
stuff.
just really really beautiful amounts of like magnesium and
Yes.
iron.
Yes.
Women who are going through their moon cycle are craving chocolate, when they're really craving those the magnesium and iron in the cacao. Um, so it can be a very powerful drink. Yeah.
Yeah, I love how you brought up how it connects us, it opens up our heart chakra and it connects us with other people because there is so much more when we're talking about teas and the things that the way we consume them, the way we appreciate them, uh, looking at it more on a spiritual level as well as just like grabbing my coffee for the day on my run, to work or whatever. But enjoying these as an experience with yourself, a meditative experience, or experiencing them with friends or family. It's really a beautiful thing when you get into it. So awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's all about the experience. The tea
Yeah.
ceremonies are these
Tea
drinking
ceremonies.
experiences they're not just like utilitarian in
Mm,
in application. Like they have profound meaning in a lot of cultures. Like
yes.
it could be tea leaf readings where the tea can just float around, and it could be a great way of divination. And
Hmm.
I feel like in many ways, a lot of these people with like piercings and tattoos and how serious they're about their coffee, it's kind of like a spiritual experience. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, because it's like it's just like what's the sum of all the parts? I'm going to make the sum of all the parts better than just the parts alone. So, um,
Mm,
and I feel like that's
I
what
love that.
the tea experience is all about. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so awesome. And so we have a couple more, and we'll get. I know we've been geeking out for a while here. We'll go through these real quick
Got all
because
day.
these are kind of like extensions. And you had mentioned you have some soup um, stewing on the stove. Soups this time of year are just a staple in my house. There's always something to warm up in the fridge. So important for your body, and they're easy for your body to digest, especially when you're not feeling well. What types of soups do you love? What's your favorite to make?
Well, I have like medicinal soups, which I'm making right now, which
Mhm.
is a lot of ginger, a lot of garlic, a lot of onion,
Mm.
carrots, and celery as the base, and then like a lot of greens like kale and broccoli, like a lot of the brassicas, and just even some more ginger and garlic and onion, and also some organic miso paste. The white organic miso paste
Yep.
really it just kind of like thickens everything up, and it's the glue that pulls everything together. So yeah, it's just a great. It's almost like just a really rich tea that you can drink and chew.
Yeah. Ugh,
Yeah,
yum. I know it's definitely, I'm sure it's beautiful in Sedona, but I'm sure you remember what it's like this time of year over here in New England, dark and cold, and it's getting into that season. So we need to be able to, I think it's a nice excuse to kind of stay in, stay warm, stay cozy, right? And soup for me are the most comforting, probably my number one comfort food for a very
yeah,
good reason.
yeah. It's very easy to digest and assimilate.
Yeah,
It's kind of a superfood, honestly. Like soups are
right.
they're overlooked. They're overlooked as a superfood because
Hmm.
it just has it's not very glamorous.
Right.
Soups are very like, oh, my grandma did that, you know?
But she did that and kept herself and her family healthy, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Some traditions are ancient and forever.
Yes, forever, exactly. And
Mhm.
juicing, that's another thing that's very easy for your body to handle and to digest. I've been doing the celery juicing for over a year now. And what I've noticed just with the celery juice, it has so many electrolytes and different things. The cluster salts. When I wake up in the morning, I'm dehydrated. I think most of us are because we've been sleeping for what 7, 8 hours,
Mhm.
and I'll most of the time have a mild headache when I wake up in the morning. And I do drink some water, but once I have that celery juice, it completely disappears, and I feel like all of my cells are happy and hydrated. My body just feels so much better. Um, but there's so many other things you can juice. One thing to be careful about juicing is juicing too much fruit because you're taking the sugar off of the fiber, which you had mentioned before. The fiber helps to slow things down and let your body process properly. So, what type of juices do you really love to mix up?
I really celery juice is a really incredible one because it's just
Hmm.
abundant and ubiquitous. And
Hmm.
right now it's self-care time. So I just had a
Yeah.
celery juice with lemons, a full
Mm.
lemon, and also like a full knob of ginger. And it was just really intense and strong. But yeah, my body is just like, yes, thank you. Uh,
Hmm.
and then I love the beet juice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, beets with cucumbers. You get a lot of the electrolytes, and you get that like really intense, like deep red. And that starts to kind of like help the liver to break down fats better, and also emulsify fats, and the gallbladder to actually the liver produces more bile, and the gallbladder stores the bile. So it's just kind of preventative medicine or maintenance for me. And
Hmm.
I just look at juices as just like medicine, like supplements, and it's just
Yeah.
and water, since it is a universal solvent, it's like it's just ballasting all that nutrition in my body, and my body is just like, yes, give me more.
Yeah. Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's the energy that it possesses as well. Just taking, like a beet and putting it in your juicer. I mean, that is so potent as opposed to possibly, buying it bottled, where it's been sitting and it's been, on trucks and stuff like that. There's like life-giving properties in so many other ways as well. And juicers aren't super expensive. I think I got mine for like about $100, and it's been really great for a year and a half. It's been just plugging away, doing its thing.
Yeah, I don't even have a juicer. I do everything in a blender, and then I squeeze it through a
Yeah,
juice cloth, and then boom,
nice.
you got a free juicer. And in my opinion, it's even more convenient than a juicer because you don't have to clean it, and
That's true.
it's not as loud. But the only thing I would recommend is putting in some kind of like lemon with acidity, because otherwise it'll oxidize the juice a little bit too much. So you're kind
Okay.
of limited to juicing with citrus in the blender,
Mhm.
but it definitely is an option.
Yeah, that's true. And everyone needs a blender. I've realized that more over this past year, how important a blender is to have in the kitchen for many different things.
Yeah, it was life changing. I just jumped on the train like last year,
Hmm.
and I think what prompted that was like I worked in this like juicing cafe, smoothie cafe for about 2 to 3 months this time last year, and I just learned like the wide variety of things you could do with a blender, and I was just like, wow, why don't I have this? Like
Yeah.
this is amazing. Um,
Yes. That's great. Awesome. Well, we have learned so much today. This has been amazing. And of course, I love seeing you. It's been so long since we've been able to chat, so this has been a great excuse to do that.
yeah, it's so good to
But
see you too.
we'll definitely have to have you back on the show. I would love to do a show on mushrooms. So let's plan that for the future.
Okay. Yeah, we could
Well,
do
thank you.
medicinal, culinary, the weird,
Yeah.
the out there mushrooms. Like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
We'll have to bring samples so we can show people because they have these names for reasons. It's called turkey tail. It's called lion's mane for a reason. Some crazy looking mushrooms out there.
Oh,
But
yeah. Yeah, maybe we can have like illustrations or like real samples.
yeah.
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 Okay.
Be cool.
For both.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you all learned a lot and took some notes. If not, you can always replay and get the info. And I'll have to get that book title from you as well, Min, and I'll post it on the Facebook page so people can look that up as well on the mushrooms.
Oh, okay. Sure.
All
Uh,
right.
yeah, definitely. I'd be happy to share that with you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much again. Till
Yeah.
next time.
Hello and welcome to Healthy Tips with me, Gwen. So happy you're here. Today we're going to talk about how to kind of jazz up tea. Maybe you're a coffee drinker or something, and you're just looking for ways to maybe healthify them. That's not a word, but I just made it one. So there's some obvious ones. You could definitely add some raw honey. Try and find locally sourced, which can help with things like if you have seasonal allergies and whatnot. Super cool. And also, if you are a coffee drinker or you're not really crazy about honey, pure maple syrup can be a really beautiful addition, just to add a little bit of sweetness. But also experiment with, say you're trying to get into green tea or matcha or something like that, and you're just finding the flavors a little bit too, I don't know, planty. Then try adding just a little squeeze of lemon, which can really just lighten things up. And we actually will extract more nutrients or phytonutrients out of the tea that way, which is very cool. You can definitely experiment with using coconut sugar, which is just a little bit better than regular sugar, or date sugar, something like that, which will bring in more of like an earthy kind of nutty flavor. And if you're trying to move away from coffee into tea, experimenting with trying things like a dandelion root tea or a burdock root, something like that, that has those naturally sort of earthy flavors. And those are just some really simple, easy ways to add a little bit of sweetness if you need it. Even like a teeny tiny dash of vanilla, pure vanilla extract to some teas, just really elevate them. I hope that you find this helpful. Thanks for hanging out. Have a glorious day and cheers.
And that wraps up our show for this week. Thanks so much for tuning in. We had some awesome conversations this week, and we have more lined up for next week. Next time, I will be sitting down with my friend Holly Olson, who's also a certified functional medicine health coach, and she's also a personal trainer. And we got to talk about how to motivate yourself to start a movement practice, which I think is a pretty topical conversation to have as we're entering into a new year and people are creating resolutions, maybe on being healthier or creating an exercise regime, whatever the case may be. Holly has some great tips on entering this season and making these resolutions with grace for yourself. So make sure to tune in for that. Gwen will be back with some healthy tips, and I will also be talking a little bit more about character strengths. So we will see you next week, Sunday at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Until then, I will see you on the flip side. Hope you all have a great week. Bye.